Welcome to the Sports Report podcast with Ben, Ricky, and Jalen. We cover trending and popular topics surrounding the world of professional and on-campus sports. With each of us having a unique sports background, we give different perspectives and insight on the current climate of sports news. And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to the Sports Report pod. I'm Ben alongside Jalen and Ricky. Today we have a special guest on. We have Dennis Dickens. Dennis, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Glad to be on.
Can you give us a little insight into your basketball career and just your experience after playing?
Sure. Yeah. It actually began in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm 75 years old now. It was a long time ago. So I played all the sports, and I remember in 8th grade, the first time the jump shot had just come in. No one had ever done it before, and I had watched a college player at Marquette shoot it, and I was outside shooting it. And at that time, I was more into baseball and football. And I went up in the air and stopped in the middle of the air, and then shot the shot. And it was like the weirdest thing. It was like I got hooked. That sounds crazy, but that's kind of like how I got hooked on basketball. Then I moved to California, and I went to Laguna Beach High School, played high school basketball there. My junior year, I played in L.A. in a league, and we came in second in the city, and I think I played 3 minutes the whole season. We moved back to Laguna Beach, and in my senior year, I made all-CIF, all-state. I just went from not playing at all to becoming a pretty good basketball player in my senior year. Wasn't recruited by anybody, local teams, Chapman, Orange Coast College. And I ended up playing down at Laguna Beach. I don't know if you know much about that court down there. Have you guys ever heard anything? It was some of the best basketball in the country. Yeah, it was the outdoor game, and right now it's in the Hall of Fame. If you would go to the Hall of Fame, there's big pictures of the best Rutgers. And Main Beach and Laguna Beach, of all places, was one of the top places where all the pros would come, college players, during the summer. So to make a long story short, I was playing there, and these guys came down from a little school called Azusa Pacific, and they basically recruited me right off that court. Wow. I didn't even know where I was going to go to college in August, and school started in September. So it was kind of a weird, not like today where you're playing AU basketball, you're being recruited. In 8th grade even. My son was recruited in 9th grade and got a scholarship offer in college in 9th grade. They knew where everyone was, so it was a different time. So anyway, went to Azusa Pacific, which was not known by, it was just a small little dinky school in Azusa, California. And the reason why I ended up getting drafted in pro basketball and having a career was LA started the first summer league pro summer league. It was at a place called Almanzar Park in Alhambra, and it sounds like the first time that I played in this league. When I went to Azusa, we were NAIA, and that means that you could play during the summer. If you were in the NCAA Division I, you could not play during the summer. So guys like Kareem, Rudy Tomjanovich, people like that. Well, obviously Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the most famous from that time. He couldn't play, so I actually started playing in pro summer league right in my freshman year in college.
Wow!
So I got this exposure that really helped me develop, and eventually I became an All-American. Our school was known, we scored 100 points a game, scored 97 points in one half, and I was an All-American at Azusa Pacific. And this is the interesting thing. Why I got drafted in the NBA is I was playing. We were playing at a school called Cal Western. Right now, it's called Point Loma College. Mm-hmm. It's a small college in San Diego, and there was a coach there named Bob Kloppenberg, who ended up coaching for the Seattle Supersonics, I think, for 10, 15 years. But anyway, he was known to be the best defensive coach in the country. He had a defense called the SOS, and pro scouts would come down there and coaches and watch and get get information from this guy. He was just the guru of defense. So to make a long story short, I gave the guru 41 points in a game.
Wow.
So there were some scouts there looking to see how the defense worked, and some skinny 6'6" guy scored 41 points against that particular defense.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's how I found out I got drafted. Frank Hamlin was the guy that drafted me. He was with the Lakers for years, with during the Magic Johnson era and even after that. And he was right out of college. He was on the staff with Pete Newell, and at the time, it was a pretty famous coach then. Alex Hannum was the coach. Alex had coached Will Chamberlain in their championship series with the 76ers. So anyway, make a long story short, I got drafted because of that, and then they looked into, they talked to other coaches, and they said, hey, this guy is, what they call him is the small college Maravich. I did everything like him, only I wasn't as good as him, but I did it at the very same era, only at a small college instead of a big school. So that's basically how I got drafted. It was a weird way to go, obviously, but that's how it happened. Pretty, for some people it's interesting. For other people it's like, oh, that just sounds kind of weird, but it is what happened. And anyway, I stayed with the San Diego Rockets through rookie camp, signed a contract, and this is what was funny. The contract, I still remember. I actually have a copy of it. It was for $15,500.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the minimum. That's what they offered me. I didn't have an agent until I signed, and I ended up with an agent. Anyway, $15,500, and my bonus was I got an apartment that Pat Riley had rented for this. He rented it all the time, but in the summer he was moving on. I think it was to Portland or the Lakers. I can't even remember where he went, but he let me have the apartment. That was basically that was my bonus. And then what I did was we did clinics, and I got paid $100 a clinic by the San Diego Rockets. We would go to inner city schools and do things. And I remember going to one, and I go, this doesn't look like a bad neighborhood. And Stu Lance was one of the guys that I was doing with, who's now, the announcer for the Lakers.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, don't leave anything in your car. Leave everything open, including your trunk, so they can see. So I didn't do that. I had all the basketballs for the clinic, put them in the trunk. We went inside, got things started. Went out to get them, and the trunk was already popped. Balls were popped. Yeah. It was. I think it was called Lemon Heights in San Diego. But
wow.
Anyway, so that's how I made a little bit of money during the summer, and I actually lived with the general manager's son.
Wow.
Who Pete Newell. So the NBA then obviously was nothing like it is now. I mean, it's a huge business now. I think on TV there was one or two games on a Sunday or something, but it was interesting to just be involved with it. I never really made it in the NBA. I bounced around, played in minor leagues and things like that. But that's basically my thing, as quick as I could tell you, from not playing in my junior year in high school to being a decorated player, I guess, in my senior year, to ended up going to a college. In fact, how I got there is I played one summer league game. The coach said, how much money do your parents make? And I'm not going to get into my family life that much, but I go, I don't think they're employed, to tell you the truth. I don't think they have any income. They go, what do you mean? I go, well, I don't live with them. I moved out when I was 16 years old, or actually 15 and a half. And they go, great, we want you. And I go, what? Well, what happened was you could get BEOG grants. So that meant, since I didn't have any income coming in, they could give me an academic scholarship, and then I would get money for room and board. Even got a little stipend because it was a government program. So it turns out I get a full ride. Actually got a little bit of money to spend going to this dinky little school, Azusa Pacific. But that's really, how my college thing started, was that way. It was so it was a roundabout way getting to where I ended up getting to, but it was pretty interesting. A lot different than most people, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's the basketball background. Getting to the point of getting drafted by the Rockets, and then after that, I know that you might have some other questions about all these minor leagues that were around then and are around now, and also the European League, how it's changed, what it was like, and what it's like now. Because I actually had a company called Video Sports International, and I placed players in Europe in the late 70s and early 80s. And obviously it's evolved much more since then, but pretty interesting anyway.
Right. No, that's awesome. And I just wanted to ask, this is Jalen here, by the way, about your career after the NBA. You talked about bouncing around the minor leagues a little bit, also playing overseas.
It was bouncing around too. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So now just go into a little bit of depth about what it was like playing in a bunch of other professional basketball leagues.
Sure.
Also, I want to talk about your goals as well. As you were going from different league to league, was your goal always to get back into the NBA? Did you just have a love for the game? So what was kind of your mindset too as you were continuing your career?
That's a good question. Well, the San Diego Rockets, and this is a joke amongst players that didn't make it in the NBA that were bouncing around, is that we'd always say, well, I was the last cut. The last cut to let go.
Yep.
Everyone was the last cut.
Yep.
In fact, I remember one time I was with some guys, and actually we were having a few beers, and we were talking, and he goes, don't say you were the last cut, because I was. We had both been cut. And I go, that's right, we were cut at the exact same time. Anyway, so I'll get to that. So with the San Diego Rockets, I was there. I actually have a pretty good excuse. I had a good shot at making it, to tell you the truth. I was a 6'6", about 100, a really thin, 190-pounder that my forte was shooting way out deep, which really didn't transfer real well to the NBA because there was no three-point shot then. Played a lot like Maravich. So what they did was I was there through veteran camp, and that means, once you get through rookie camp in that era, in fact, we had rookie games when I was with the San Diego Rockets. We played the Phoenix Suns twice, and we played the Lakers rookies twice. And I had some really big games in those games, and that's one of the reasons why I got to sign a contract. But I know this isn't about the other leagues, but this is the funniest thing. We're playing against the Lakers rookies, and I think his name was Jim McMillan, ended up taking Elgin Baylor's place, and they won a championship that year. The Lakers did. So anyway, I'm coming down the court. I'd made a bunch of jump shots on him because he came in number one draft choice, big money. He came in overweight. He really didn't have to work that hard and wasn't working hard because he already made the team. So I gave him a few jumpers, and coming down the court in full court, I threw a behind-the-back pass, and accidentally it went through the other team, a guy running across the key, threw his legs under to someone underneath the basket, and Chick Hearn was announcing the game for real. He was, and he goes, "There's that kid from Azusa, the small college Maravich." The guy, they went through his, and he said, I won't say exactly how he said it, but he used the F word. He goes, "You effing didn't try to do that on purpose," and I was laughing so hard. I couldn't believe it that it happened. So I kind of had some luck and some skill at the same time. So anyway, getting into I had the summer, did my thing with the clinics, was with the Rockets, San Diego Rockets, and then I had an injury. They brought in a guy named Johnny Egan and another fellow named I can't remember, Siegfried, and Alex Hannon, the coach, had coached these two guys on NBA teams, and he brought them in as player coaches. So I was gone. They just said, "You're gone." So I had a meeting with the general manager, Pete Newell, and he said, you could come back into this league. He goes, "We have a minor league. It's called the Continental League, and we have a team." And that was what the G League would be now. That's what it was considered. It was a big league, and you actually, if you signed a contract, you'd actually get paid. Because a lot of these minor leagues, you get on a team and they'd run out of money, and or the league would fold. So I went there and played with a guy named Curtis Perry. We both got released at the same time. Just to give you, so Curtis Perry and I played on this team all through the season. He ended up getting picked up by the Milwaukee Bucks because they saw him play. The next year, he was on an NBA championship team starting. So very few people ever got out of these minor leagues then and got back in the NBA. But he had, I know it's not, this was kind of about me, but that was an interesting thing. From getting released to being on the World Championship team that quick. It was, so that league was very competitive. So I played for the Chicago Land Travelers, which was the name of the team, and we had teams from players from the Chicago Bulls and from the San Diego Rockets. So it was a combination.
Oh wow!
And then of local college guys that didn't, wanted to play pro ball but didn't make it. That would make up the roster. So I ended up coming there, and I thought that they wanted me to be a team player. They wanted me to score. So I think I led the league in scoring. If not, I was either 2 or 3. So if it was today's day, I would have gotten a much better shot, obviously.
Right.
It made it in the league, especially with a 3-point shot. And I'm not making any excuses. It's just it was a different time.
Yeah.
Compared to then. But pretty different. They even in the ABA, a lot of coaches didn't want you to shoot threes. Now, here's the interesting thing: is Alex Hannum was the coach, and at that time, the triangle offense. Everybody knows what that is. The Chicago Bulls had it, the Lakers had it. Well, he was coaching that at that time, and the reason why I made it is because I played that spot. Obviously, I wasn't going to be the star on the team. They had bigger names than that. But that's where I played because I could shoot out of that spot, and it was 6'6". So when they first started talking about the triangle, I remember how everyone hated it. I mean, everybody, except I loved it because I got a bunch of shots and got a chance to play a little in the NBA. So that's kind of a different thing. But anyway, so I ended up getting cut, and they had the meeting, and they said go, and I went. And when I get there, I go, well, am I going to be put in a hotel room or whatever? They go, oh no, you're going to live with the one of the owners. Like I'm going to live with the owner. They go, yeah, he has a little apartment in his garage. This really happened in Chicago, Illinois. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was no big deal for me. That wasn't a big letdown. I didn't really come from like UCLA or Kentucky or somewhere, a big school. So I ended up living with the owner.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and played on the team. We came in second in the league. I remember I made enough money. I think I know how much I made. I made $100 a game. We got in the playoffs, so I think I made another $300. I made enough to buy a car so that I could get the heck out of Chicago and get back to California. But I love Chicago. It was fun. But anyway, so that was, and I ended up meeting she's my ex-wife now, but I was married to her for 10 years. She was dating Jim Fox, who's the starting center for the Bulls.
Wow.
And so I ended up with her, and we got in my car, went back to California. I worked out, got some calls, and from there I went to, after the Continental League, I went and played in the Eastern League, which was an established league that paid more money. That was kind of like a mini NBA team, and it supplied 2/3 of the players in the ABA.
Oh, wow.
You can look. That's something not many people know about. Where did all those ABA players come from? They didn't just steal them all from NBA teams. They took most of them from the Eastern League, and so that was was being depleted at the time. Coaches that coached in the ABA, a lot of them came from the Eastern League. There were teams like the Wilkes-Barre Barons, the Allentown Jets. I mean, I can't believe I can still remember these teams. Okay, so Bic Pen, I think that was the Camden. Yeah, Camden is where Bic pens were made, and so they were the Camden Bics, so they had pens on their jerseys and stuff. So I played in that league for a while. And then I got a break. I don't know if I got to remember this for this. Frank Ramsey, I believe. Ramsey that coached the Portland Trailblazers to a championship. He was coaching the Buffalo Braves then. And I was helping a kid out at King's College in Wilkes-Barre, like working out with him. And this guy goes, just don't play on this Eastern League team anymore. I want you to go up. I'm going to get you a tryout with the Buffalo Braves right now. I'm like, what? So I actually went up there and I worked out with the team. It was the closest I ever came to getting I signed a contract, but this guy was actually, I'm not saying people weren't honest in the league. He said, look, here's our numbers. No matter what happens, we have too many no-cut contracts, so I'm going to have to let you go. He goes, but the point was at that time, one of the guys was not going to sign. He was going to go to the ABA, and I would have got that spot. So while I'm there doing this, a guy I played with in college, Dwayne Brewer, calls me and says, hey, there's a team called Athletes in Action. And I said, Athletes in Action, isn't that Christian touring team? He goes, yeah. He goes, we want you on the team. And I go, I can't do what you guys ask people. You had to raise support, meaning you would go out to churches and things, and you would have them support you. So you were a nonprofit, like a church.
Wow.
And then you would go evangelize. You go play BYU or whatever. And so they said, no, we have 3 spots that are paid. We'll pay you a salary because we want some of the better players. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was my next minor league team, Athletes in Action, based in Phoenix, Arizona. So I ended up playing with them, and we toured all over, and we played all major colleges, BYU, UCLA, USC, all those schools. And as I did that, I ended up being the leading scorer on the team. And like I said, we played major schools. And from there, I was in Phoenix at the time. That's where our home base was. The Phoenix Suns reached out to me and said, hey, we want you to come to camp with us. And this one I was like, wow, maybe this will work out. But at the same time, I had another offer to go play basketball in Europe. And at that time, nobody wanted to play basketball in Europe. They thought it was a losing proposition. The teams weren't, you would be really, you could score, 30 points a game, 40, but it wouldn't be very competitive. And that's what I was told anyway. So I go play for Athletes in Action for a year. I'm with the Suns. I'm with the Suns all the way through into veteran camp, and didn't make the team. And I ended up taking a job in Helsinki, Finland. And it was because nobody wanted. That's why I got it. It was late in the year. Because usually you go early. The season starts at a different time, and you go early. So I'm like, I'm going to play basketball for the Helsinki team. And he goes, you can either do that, or I have a touring team you can be on. The tour is all over Europe, and you make a little more money. And that's what I want to do. So they go, okay. So I played on it. Was Gillette and Levi Strauss sponsored the team. So it was a bunch of guys that were either in or out of the NBA, and they would tour. And they really glamorized it. I mean, we had the junkiest bus. I don't even know where the heck they got it. We go to all of the people go, oh, it must have been terrific seeing Europe. Like, I never saw Europe. We'd be driving all night, stop and get a hotel room, play 1 or 2 games and get back in. So we'd go all over. So eventually, after this was over, I go, I'm going to look into this Helsinki, Finland thing because I just still wanted to play. So anyway, make a long story short, in January of that year, I left this team and went there and signed a contract with them. It was actually the most money. It was more than believe it or not, than the NBA team. And I'm really surprised at that. Because it was kind of like a see how you would play. So I played like 6 games, and they liked what they saw. We were winning games. And so I stayed there, and I played for the Helsinki Playboys. So think about this. I played for Athletes in Action, which is a Christian team. Which we did testimonies,
That's awesome.
In front of the whole crowd. Like at BYU, we're trying to convert all the Mormons to becoming newborn Christians, like 8,000 people. And we're telling them, screw Mormonism, you want to be a Christian.
Wow.
From that to the Helsinki Playboys, that on my uniform, I still have it. Boy, if this was on TV, it had condomi across the front. Which is condoms. And then on the back, I don't know if this show is okay, but
this is great.
Dildo. It had a black dildo, and it was called...
Wow.
Yeah. So the team I played for made sexual toys.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it was pretty different. But here's the thing: this team was loaded. The owner was called Indoloy. It was a big cosmetic company. So we had a big. I mean, I'd never been in a motorhome at that time. They had a big motorhome, literally with a jacuzzi in it. I mean, it was a tub that was like a jacuzzi, and they owned an airline called Spare Air. And so, it was interesting. We would play all over exhibition games, but we played in Helsinki. And the championship there was a big deal because you got paid. Now, this is different than most European. You got paid, I think at the time it was 3 cents for everybody that was in the. And so they packed, there'd be like 18,000 people watching this because hockey was the big sport. So the Playboys had a hockey team and they had a basketball team too. So we'd get all these fans coming there. So you'd get paid based on how many people came in the stadium. So it was more money. Like I said, I made more than I made. Well, I didn't make anything with the San Diego Rockets because I got cut. But it was more lucrative than I thought it would be. And it was at that time, right then and there, I never tried to play in the NBA again. I played in a couple European. I had no goals set for that because when you're playing, you're out on the court and you're running up and down and you're playing against the other Finnish teams or you're playing against a Swedish team and you're going for a championship. You don't even really think while you're running, geez, I wish I was in the NBA. You're here and you're a star there. And I talked to other Americans who were there, and they had the same feeling. It's the the environment you're in. So I stayed there and played for 3 years. Went back and forth to the States in the summer, but it was phenomenal. And here's the really crazy thing. I'll just tell you, this is where when I'm saying I never really wanted to try to play anywhere else. I have a son from when I was in college. I was married when I was in college, but never saw him. The lady left. I'll just tell you, this is a quick story. And so we got reunited when he was 19 years old.
Wow.
So this young man, his name is Dustin. Of course, now I have grandchildren, all this stuff. So Dustin invited. We'd been together now or knew each other for about a year. He invited two of his friends over to our house in Capistrano Beach, and this actually happened. They walked in, and the one guy looked right at me and goes, "It's you. It's you." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean it's you? You're the guy that looked like Mark Spitz." And I'm like, "What?" We didn't know what he was talking about. Well, he's Finnish. He lived in Finland. And there was a giant, they have those big things of Michael Jordan in Chicago. Like, you come into town, and it's just a big, giant picture of him.
Yeah.
They had a big, giant picture of me. But afro. So I don't have an afro normally. So my hair was all, they did a perm because that was that Indoloy that when I said they were a cosmetic company, it was a perm and it was Dennis Dickens Playboy gets a perm or something.
Wow.
It was a big huge.
So good.
So I'm thinking you actually saw me in Finland on a giant poster. I mean, it was the weirdest thing that has ever. We were laughing so hard that something like that would happen coincidentally. So that's just a funny story about what can happen there. And it was. I loved playing there, and what I did also was I got to play. So when our season was over, Finland was not the toughest league at that time in the 70s. It was Italy. Italy was number 1. France was number 2. Mm-hmm. France actually had over 400 teams. So I think this is something you guys are kind of interested in. What was it? What were these European leagues, and what happened between then and now? Why they're the way they are now based then? Because then, if you were a really good American player, you pretty much could dominate over there in Europe on the team you were on. But what I noticed was, like I played my team in Finland, there were 2 guys that were drafted higher than me in the NBA that had gone to BYU that were Finns. So I was on a team with 2 other NBA draft choices. So I had a kind of a unique situation. So anyway, make a long story short, after we won our championship, I had friends playing in Italy on much stronger teams, much more developed teams, and they could hire another guy for the playoffs. So they would hire me, and I would make almost as much the whole year I made Finland playing for them because you got played by how many games you won, and if you won the championship, you got a bonus. So it was kind of a renegade kind of system. I'd run into players that I knew. I said, I thought you were playing in Germany. Well, no, I'm here for this playoff. They signed me for this. So it was if you were an American, you were a for-hire gun is what it was.
Mm.
And it was kind of cool. It was fun.
Right.
Now it's nothing like that. Zero.
Dennis, sorry to cut you short right there, but that was
Sure.
Amazing. Just one thing I got out of that, small college Maravich is one of the best nicknames I've ever heard. So one thing that I caught as you were kind of going through your experiences was a lot of the stuff you're talking about had to do a lot with the business side of basketball, especially, like you said, going with so many different organizations and seeing how contracts work, just understanding the ins and outs of maybe what people don't consider a pro basketball player would be like. And obviously the NBA and all leagues have changed so much in terms of the product of the game that's on the court. But I wanted to ask you, how have you seen the business side of basketball everywhere change, especially getting firsthand experience with that?
You talking about the business side of it?
Yeah, just like how, like you said, your experience maybe for guys who are doing stuff like that nowadays, or just overall the climate of basketball, professional basketball.
Right. Well, I don't want to say the incarnation, but it starts for a 6th or 7th grader now. That's when they're going out and they're already identifying people that could end up being in the NBA.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. Obviously LeBron James, but there was a guy, Demetrius Walker, which probably, if you look him up, and you'll know who he was. He played for, there's a league up here, Modern Day, you've probably heard of them in high school. They're a good team. So he played for Jay Sarah. Anyway, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as the next, for sure NBA guy. Mm-hmm. Well, there was a book written, and I can't remember, it was Sports Illustrated, about this whole situation, how the business side has changed and where it comes from. And at that time, this is way back, this is like in 2006, 2007, guys were walking around with bags of money. I'm not kidding you.
Yep, right.
Bags of money. Going and recruiting guys to come play for colleges.
Yeah.
To move from one AAU team to another.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I've seen it because I was part of it. So this is a different part. You didn't really ask, but this is 100% was going on. It's changed somewhat now. But the money started then. Demetrius Walker could dunk in 6th grade. He would dunk over people. Our team, my son played on the same team with him. I helped coach it. We didn't lose. I think we won every game by over 50. Wow. I mean, the whole national championship, the whole thing. So, but these guys were brought from out of state, sponsored in homes and stuff. So it starts there. So they try to identify. Now, obviously things change. This kid that could dunk, Demetrius Walker, didn't grow much. He stayed 6'1", so that didn't happen for him. But then there's someone else they identify. So there it starts. So now you've got what they call street agents. They're not regular agents that are going between the colleges, giving money to coaches, to everybody to move this up. So they already kind of know who's coming up, and the kids do too, because they know, well, one kid's getting a pair of new Nikes. The other kid, now this is true, is getting 3 or 4 pair a week. Wow. This is, and I mean, they're expensive shoes. Now it's changed. I'll tell you, it's gone back the other way. But that was going on. Now what's happening is it's all legitimate. There's no more of that. The Nike teams, and they are the ones, it's Nike, Adidas, or Adidas, Nike, New Balance, have their own teams, their own tournaments for high school guys. And they're the very best, and they have accountants, they have CPAs, they do everything the right way. The coach gets paid, it isn't under the carpet money. And then there's all the other AAU teams. But that's where it really starts there. They know who these guys are. So the money starts there. The kids understand that. Their parents understand that. And that's why it's huge, all this, what school are you going to go to? Are you going to go to college? Are you not? Are you going to play in the in the G League instead of going to college. And, my opinion is that if you want to play in the NBA, you would go right to the G League if you're not interested in being a student or having any, social experiences, because you really will learn more.
Mm-hmm.
If people tell you it's the other way, it's bullshit. If you're on an NBA team, they have the very best player development coaches now, which they didn't have 10 years ago. The very best. You learn from the guys. Most of the NBA guys are straight up good dudes, not like it was when I was playing. I mean, I won't get into the different characters, but it's not a bad situation for them. And everybody says this, and that's baloney. Playing in college, think about the UCLA team. How would you like to play offense for the coach at UCLA if you're a gifted player? It'd be the last thing you'd ever want to do.
Right.
That's my opinion, anyway. So the business kind of mixes with the coaching and what's going on. And I don't know if you're interested, but so that business part for me is that it starts so early that these kids, by the time they're 19, are not naive.
Yeah,
you see them
totally.
And everyone, wow, that guy's pretty articulate. He seems to understand what to say and when to say it. Hey, he's been doing it since 8th grade.
Mm.
Absolutely. Especially if he's been identified early on. Everybody knows who he is 100%. Mm-hmm. That's the opposite of what Europe's like, why you get so many great players coming out of Europe, is they have a completely different way of doing things. It's not as random. You go to modern day high school, you don't like the coach, you think you're going to be an NBA player, you end up going to Texas to play in high school. You can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. If you're in Finland, Italy, wherever, you start out at 10 years old. They'll pick out the kids, the tallest, the fastest. The parents, they'll look at the parents for sure. Usually it's the mom. I know it sounds crazy, but from a biological standpoint, it's not proven. But the taller the mom, the kid's going to be tall. They'll get them, and they'll get in a program, and they'll be covered all their expenses. They'll go in. They get education too, but they are in a basketball fundamental clinic from the time they're young. And what happens is, so they learn how to shoot. They learn how to ball handle. This is happening right now. When they're little, and they don't make a distinction between how big you are, how little you are, like we did for years here in the United States. If you're short, you're a point guard, right? If you're 6'5" and you can shoot, you're a wing. They didn't do that. So if you're even going to be 7'2", you're going to shoot just as good or better than the other guy. Mm-hmm. So they changed that spectrum. That's why those guys are in such demand now, because of how they've been formed versus the AAU thing where you come up and the guy that's coaching your team just got out of prison, and that was a few years ago. It's true, though. I'm not making this up. And these yelling and screaming stuff at you versus you're in Europe and they know every stat. They know that you don't know how to reverse pivot into your step back,
yep.
And you're going to learn how to do that. And so that's where you get these guys that are just phenomenal shooters. I mean, look at Luka.
Yep.
I mean, that's bizarre. He brought a different style. He brought the style of don't hurry up. Deceleration is more important than accelerating. Keep them off guard. Don't force anything. Speed is not everything, because in the NBA, the speed's there. So if you come down full speed, you can be timed. They're going to block every one of your shots. I don't care who you are.
Totally.
Definitely.
So it's just really changed a lot. So it goes both ways, the business part of it, and I think the talent, obviously. But it's just they know so far ahead of time.
Exactly.
For
yeah.
sure.
Which they never did before. It was never like that.
Definitely.
So that's what happens in Europe. Well, you end up in these schools, and by the time you're 15 or 16, if you are, I guess you could say, a freak, you're bigger than everyone else. You have all the skills, plus your athleticism that someone else doesn't have. So, yeah, and it's not a racist thing, but it is when people go, "Well, he's a white guy." That used to be the deal.
Wow.
Well, if you're a white guy, you're not going to be able to jump. You're not going to be able to do this. And then all of a sudden, out of Europe, these guys come in the league, and they're like, wait, he knows how to play defense. Well, that doesn't always happen, but it's like, hey, these guys can play. So it's, that's evened out too. So a lot of things have changed in the league completely for the better. I think way for the better.
Definitely. And that's a good transition. Actually, I was gonna ask you. This is Ricky, by the way.
Hi, Ricky.
How you doing? What are your thoughts on like the players like Luka, as you mentioned, and Jokic, and these guys like Giannis that are coming to the league and having like instant success compared to the American players that are playing here?
Well, because you just think about this. Let's say you're an American player. You can dunk. You're in 8th grade or 7th grade. And you're fast. And so they get you on a team. So this actually happens. I didn't mention this. If you're playing AAU basketball, it's changed a little bit, but you might play 70 games a year already. Like when you're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you'll play with your team, but you'll play that many games because they're not in high school yet. So you'll play 60, 70 games, which didn't used to happen. Well, that's not going to happen if you're in Europe. If you're in Europe, you're going to learn how to play first. So they're going to go through all the fundamentals. You're going to get player development. In the AAU, it's changed the last 5 years a little bit, but there's not much player development. It's just games, competition, going to these tournaments. There is still money to be made by the coaches and by people that can, I guess, glomp onto these players and that end up being their street agent or getting them signed up with Adidas or with Nike, stuff like that. But in Europe, it's not like that. Plus, in Europe, the colleges, there are no sports and universities in Europe. It's all club teams. So those little AAU teams that we have here, where they're randomly put together, and the ones they have there, that's their national team.
Yeah.
So all up and up. The very best minds are there. The people that are there are legitimate. And so you start seeing these products, and if you want to call them a product, I mean, you look at Luka, you look at Jokovic, there's more than those guys too. A lot of guys coming in, you're like, holy cow, what the heck? Well, it's happening here now too. I'm a trainer. I train with my son. We've got guys now that are in 6th grade that shoot as good or better than most NBA guys.
Wow. Because
they're training all the time. They know how to train. I can go on the internet and I can see what Handy does for the Lakers, see what Drilley's doing, and bring it right to this kid. And by the way, the Lakers have the best player development. You don't see it on the team because of how they bring guys in. They're in the heat. They just have the guys that are taking these young guys and working with them is amazing. But in Europe, they've been doing this with the kids since they were in 5th grade, every year.
And I want to go back to how you said that. There's 6th, 7th, 8th graders who are refining their skills so sharply nowadays. And with you being a trainer and seeing, firsthand the youth and the seriousness that the talent in basketball is getting, with the level of play raising so much, what do you think is going to be the next step? What's the next generation of basketball going to be like, with everyone having a personal trainer or the kids starting so early? How do you think that's going to evolve the game?
Yeah.
What's the average, youth basketball player going to look like, and how is that going to affect eventually the NBA too?
Well, one of the things is, because the reason why this is happening is because it's a top-down thing. Obviously, the NBA, when you're a young kid, you watch NBA players. You understand how much money you see how much money they're making. It's on TV all the time. There's 20, 30 shows. There's podcasts like yours. Everybody's getting to know about this, and so there's the information is out there. So what happens is the acceleration of skills is bizarre. If you think about Curry, you think about Lillard coming down, shooting 30-foot shots, whatever. But because people are finding out, this is what's happening. They're finding out when they do skills training, which skills, it's like if it's tried and true, it's real. So, for instance, I teach logo shots. Now, I'm coaching a kid that's 5 foot. Oh, this is really good. 5'6". He's a freshman in high school. He's not going to be taller than 5'7". He starts on the varsity team. He can go up and grab the rim. He made 29 out of 32 curl 3-point shots with a bump from a trainer. And I put this on a video, and I showed it to a friend of mine that coaches a college women's basketball team, and he said, "Oh, that's on a loop." And I go, no.
Oh, wow.
No, he really said that. And I go, well, thank you for complimenting me on my pass. So that means my pass was the same every time. So he made 31 out of 34 threes off a curl, and he's almost at the logo. I'm not making this up. This is a true story. So this is the kind of thing you the more you work, the better you get a shot that can be repeated.
Yeah, 100%.
Correct. You get that, and you just keep on doing it, and you mix that with some athleticism, and then you mix it with someone that's dedicated and has the right temperament. So this kid I have, he's that good. And he plays AAU basketball, and you know who Matt Barnes is.
Yep.
He's playing against Matt Barnes' team, who has all these guys that are already been, people are looking at him to maybe be NBA players, for sure Division I players. So I see him, and I'm not coaching this team. I'm just the player development guy for this guy. So I see Matt Barnes and said, hey, see that little guy over there? And he goes, yeah, I know, Dean. And I go, he's going to out-jump the guy on your jump ball. This is in 7th grade. So they've got a 6'2" kid that can jump, who's a guard too, and he was 5'5", then, and he out-jumped him.
Wow.
Yeah, 5'5", and then gave him 35. And Matt Barnes, was high-fiving this kid during the game. Yeah. So it doesn't even have. You don't even have to be. There's little guys coming up now because now it's it's breakthrough into the key, kick and shoot.
Totally.
So it's either a 3 or it's a layup. Now mid-range is coming back, but if you can get inside and make someone come and help you, then you're going to have an open guy. So it's all this 3-point shooting, and so it's just changed everything about the game. And so where is it going to go? You're just going to see guys that are going to be. The skill level they have now, there's 1,000 Maraviches now. I mean, there's 10,000 Maraviches. There's girls in 7th grade that are better ball handlers than he was. I'm not kidding. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. There's one guy in particular that teaches this. He's one of the best there is. He does this, and he has like 10, 11-year-old kids that are, you can't even believe what you're seeing. So if you combine that with someone that is going to be of size and have some athleticism, you're starting to see these people that wouldn't even normally be in the NBA. Some of them are in the NBA because of their skill level, not just the fact that they can dunk, which has become a big thing too, dunking, which people don't realize. You remember, Oscar Robertson is, right?
Yep.
One of the famous guys ever. He was one of the best athletes in the NBA. You can look this up. He never dunked once in an NBA game.
Yeah.
Not one. Never. And he led the league in triple doubles. He was the all everything, because it wasn't part of the game then.
Yep.
And so now it's just. And then this little guy that I'm training, he's been doing weightlifting and plyo since he was in 6th grade.
Mm-hmm. Just the difference in training in the eras, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all scientific too. It isn't like, just jump up on this box or lift some weights. It's no, you have to do this. It's an 8-week training thing.
Totally.
Then we go to some balance. I've got. He goes, why am I doing this? I mean, now he's 15. I go, because if you get the balance right, then this is going to enhance you as you get stronger. You'll still jump higher. I mean, there's so many things that never were brought up before ever. So what I see is the skill level. Look at the guys shooting from the logo now. Seriously. I mean, the percentage, I think Curry 3 years ago from 28 feet or further out hit 51%. He shot better deeper than he did closer on his three because he's not being contested. And that's why, because he's shot thousands of those. And he's adapted his shot so that he can shoot. What's the difference between shooting 22 feet and 25? It's not a lot different. It really isn't. It's just, you just have to keep repeating. So that's what's made the game interesting, and it's brought some more people back in the game because you don't have to be 6'10", 6'11". And, 2 years ago, the NBA was shorter than it had ever been.
Yep.
It was not. And now you're seeing centers coming back because now, teams are they're redoing things because they couldn't get the advantage of shooting threes. because everybody's doing it. So then the next thing you know, you got like Cleveland, you got a 7-foot center, a 7-foot forward, blah, blah, blah. But they're all going to be skilled. That's one thing where I see it going is if you can't shoot, you can't play.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I wanted to transition to some of the role players that we've seen play overseas and make their way back to the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
So guys like PJ Tucker, Dante Exum, how do you think like that's evolved to where players are going overseas and then making their way back to the league from putting up impressive numbers in EuroLeague and leagues like that?
Well, it's when it comes right down, it's not a crusade. They go, if you can do it, they'll find you. It's because of the internet. It's because of all the scouts going over to Europe and seeing these guys. Because there were Dante Exums, there were Tuckers way before they came in. It's just nobody saw them, and no one gave them a shot. I mean, seriously, that is what happened. So now they're getting seen, and it all has to do with their numbers. So if PJ Tucker, they already knew that he was this tough guy, right? Who could take your space away, could disrupt a big wing or a four in him scoring, but they didn't know that he could shoot. So he goes over to Europe and he starts making threes over and over, and they go, okay, now we can come back. Now here's someone, let's try it. Because just playing defense then wasn't going to work. But he worked on his three ball. He gets that down. Now he has that niche. Guard their best guy, be disruptive, and stand in the corner because they're not going to guard you because you're not the main guy, and you have to make a three.
Yeah.
So that's one. But Dante Exum, I would say he's the number one guy. Because if you look at him, you look at his body, that dude is put together. That is not a small person. That's a powerful guy that has a great base game. And he had so many injuries, they kind of blew him off. There was a chance for him to go there. Someone sees him, and, it's kind of like if you're a scout, you shouldn't think of their name from before. Just look at what that person is doing now and go, wow, this dude can play.
Yeah.
Then you go back, oh, that guy was a number one draft, or not number one, was a big-time draft choice. What's the risk you have? Zero. Bring him in, see how he's going to do, and there's going to be so much more of that. Because there's like injury play guys make mistakes, guys get overlooked. Look at Duncan Robinson for the Heat.
Mm-hmm.
Division III, or I think it was a Division III team he was on, and then a Division I team sees him, and that's also happening. You don't go to junior college anymore to get into a major school. You can go to a Division II, Division III school, average 25 a game, get in the portal. You could be at Oklahoma or Wichita State the next year. So they're just people, they can find them now. So if you do the work, they're going to find you.
Gotcha. Well, Dennis, it's been a treat listening to you talk about basketball, so much knowledge. Before we let you go, I just wanted to finish off by asking you who your favorite players are to watch now in the NBA.
Okay. Well, there's five, but the number one guy that just amazes me all the time, well, maybe I'll put two. Lillard's one of them just because of his range and his athleticism. And then Kyrie is number one.
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, man.
Just because if you're training people and you've played before and you know what your body can do and can't do, and you watch them and you go, there is the most talented player handling the ball, body space, everything there is in the league.
For sure.
So that's number one. Luka would probably be number 5 for me, only because it's not that I don't like the way he plays, is I just don't see it transferring over to a championship team yet, because he's so good and he dominates so much. So winning is important too. So, but I would put him in there. So he'd be one. That would be number one. I've got to put Kobe Bryant in there. I know he's not playing, obviously.
The GOAT, one of the GOATs, yep.
But I can't take him out of there because he decided, I'm going to be the finisher. I'm not the giver like LeBron. I don't do this. I finish games. I finish quarters. I take the hard shot. I win the game for you, or I lose the game for you. And so I can never not – I just loved him as a player. A lot of people didn't like him. They thought he was selfish, and he was really selfish in a good way, though. He earned that.
Yep.
So I would say Kyrie, him, obviously Jokic. I mean, it's weird to watch.
That's a one way to put it. Totally.
Yeah, and what people don't get is he's one of the best bring it down full court players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, and he couldn't do that early on.
Yep.
Everything he does is you don't know, you can't believe what you're watching and how he does it.
For sure.
And how he that shot. I mean, when people talked about Nowitzki, this isn't even close. The two of them, it's not close. He's 10 times better.
Wow.
10. I mean, that's just an opinion. So and then of course Seth Curry is the guy. He changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
He changed the game. He has a weird ass shot. I mean, he shoots. I don't know if you know how he does his workouts, but he's got that push shot. It's not a real two-piece jumper, where you go up, stop in the air, and then shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that push shot. He shoots his layups, his mid-range. Everything's the same exact motion. Everywhere in the court, half court, three-quarters court, wherever he shoots. He somehow, I don't know who, his dad didn't shoot like that. He's the most amazing shooter that's ever lived, period. It's just bizarre. But that's all on him. That's all his repetition, the smoothness he has, even his personality. You know how he talks? He sounds sometimes like he's had a couple of beers or something. In a bad way. He's like, yeah. Well, that's how he plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's never in a hurry. So I'd say Kyrie, Curry, Kobe Bryant, and then if you're talking about big guys, Jokic, and who I really like when he's not malingering is Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
But we've nicknamed him Owie Breakdown. He gets an owie and he starts looking at his fingers and he can't play. Then he breaks down and he can't play. So if Owie Breakdown doesn't do that, he is a phenomenal player. I think one of the best defenders I've ever seen.
Yes,
for 100%.
We were just talking about his rim protection, one of the best in the NBA.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and the fact what he can do on offense along with that. Very few rim protectors can score like he can also. But he's got that other little thing, the owie breakdown. And, so I would never yell that at him, and I'm respectful of how great he is, but it's just,
Oh, absolutely.
If he didn't have that aspect, so those are my guys that I really like.
That's a good group.
But Kyrie is just, you love someone that you go, how does he do that?
Totally.
And how he gets people off guard. And when people don't realize what a really good athlete he is. But see, he's smart like Luka. He doesn't show it all at one time. He's not trying to jump over you because he can dunk on anybody too. He just doesn't do that. He's constantly working the game, working you. And I look at like guys that never want to guard. That'd be the last guy I'd ever want to guard.
For sure.
If I was trying to make a team, they said, to make the team, you got to go guard that guy right there, and you got to hold him. I'd just go, hey, I'll go play, soccer. I mean, that's how good I think he is. So what about you guys? Who are your favorite guys? I know I shouldn't be asking the questions, but
we love it. We love it. One guy recently, just off the top of my head, I love to watch Jalen Brunson. You mentioned earlier how the mid-range is coming back. I love how, especially in the playoffs, his game translates so well. When teams are crashing the three-point line so hard, he can go one-on-one in the post for being such a little guy. Us three were just talking about this yesterday. His footwork is so good, his timing, pump fakes, just the way he manipulates the game and stays in his timing. That's one guy I like to watch.
Yeah, I'm a big Kyrie fan as well. I also look at Devin Booker recently in the past couple years.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Devin Booker is my number one guy for me. I bring him up. My mind was all over the place. I'm not just saying that. It's because that's how I'm about the same size, everything. Devin Booker, to me, has got to be put in there. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up. 100%.
Yeah, no problem. He's definitely a hooper. I've been looking at Shea as well recently. He's been his mid-range game has been crazy. I've been looking at a couple of his moves and how he maneuvers in the paint and gets his shots.
Yeah, you think the Clippers are looking at him?
Definitely regretting that trade.
Didn't we draft him? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
For me, I would say Anthony Davis. Obviously, he's got to be on the floor. And then Tyrese Halliburton's another guy I really like. His playmaking is off the charts. His shot has gone down a little bit since his injury, but he's just a fun player to watch. He gets his teammates involved, controls the game so well for Indiana.
Yeah. Closest guy to Magic Johnson in the league.
Seriously.
Has that smile on his face. He's always smiling. He's always promoting his teammates all the time, making it better for him. I look at him, I go, I know he's not Magic Johnson, but man, he's got the same demeanor. I've never seen anyone like that. He is that guy.
definitely.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us on the
Thank you,
episode,
Dennis. That
Dennis.
was awesome.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it.
Hey, you guys know your stuff. That's amazing. It's good. It's fun. It's a great sport. And, as old as I am, I'm still out there. In fact, I'm this weekend I got 2 guys we're training.
There you go.
And it's good, man. So nice talking to you. Ben, thanks for giving me the chance to do this. I could bring up old stuff. My memory actually remembers some things.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Super sharp.
Yeah. No. It is that way. When you get my age, you start to think, God, you just wonder, am I diminishing? Is my mental? But it's when you're interested in something and you like it, it can keep you going.
Yeah.
So.
Such a treat listening to you talk about the game.
Good luck to everything you guys are doing. I think it's great. Great to be young. Just keep going for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Dennis.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye. And that will do it for this episode of the Sports Report Pod, and class dismissed.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Report Podcast. Be sure to check out our Instagram at the Sports Report Pod for more content and to never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.
Score!